Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring Necrobiotic. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this tabletop role-playing game, where casualties are high, birds are low, and the dead are being mechanized, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about combat. When a player character enters combat, their player will make an appropriate play and spend the successes according to the action list for the combat. So you're going to be choosing how you spend these successes. For example, for each success spent, the character inflicts exhaustion on the opponent equal to the damage value of the weapon. The first success must always be spent in this category, otherwise the action fails. For each success spent, you can also inflict trauma on the opponent or break an object. This is at the mechanist's discretion. Particularly elaborate or tough objects, such as an automaton or hardened steel club, may require more than one success spent in persistence to break it. In this case, the mechanist must declare this before the player has spent the success. Also, for each success spent, the player can add an effect to the hit, such as trip, blind, disarm, etc. Apart from that, for each success spent, the player inflicts exhaustion equal to the weapon's damage value to another target. And for each success spent, the player can cancel a consequence. Now, concerning player versus player, if two or more player characters are fighting each other, each character's player will make an appropriate play. In player versus player, the successful player or coalition is whoever made the highest play. Those of the player or the sum of those of the coalition who made the lowest play will be subtracted. What remains will be allocated by the player or by the coalition of players according to the action list for the fight. When it comes to initiative, this is not included in the gear system regulation. If the player characters are aware of the danger, the players act first. Otherwise, they immediately suffer one or more consequences caused by the enemy threat. At this point, we move on to the turn. The turn begins with the player character's actions. Once these actions have finished and the consequences applied in response to their actions have been resolved, the mechanist can threaten one or more player characters with further consequences. The threat is optional and represents the tool available to the mechanist to complete and balance the flow and the fate of the battle after the action of the player characters. It can be brought about by one, some, all non-player characters, or by the environmental or random factors. Remember that when the player characters aren't aware of an attack, it is a reaction. Now, concerning the non-player characters' health and consequences, challenges and adversaries have two main indicators in the gear system, represented by a pile of cards on the table. A value of damage that they can bear before passing out, comparable to exhaustion for the player characters, represented by face-up cards. And a value of trauma they can endure before dying, represented by face-down cards. Like player characters, a non-player character who receives more damage than the remaining face-up cards would immediately suffer trauma. The face-down cards, in addition to representing the trauma that the non-player character may suffer before dying, also represent the number of consequences with which the mechanist threatens the characters per turn. It goes without saying that inflicting trauma on the enemy reduces its ability to harm, diminishing the consequences it is capable of causing. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about inventory. Now, when it comes to this combat explanation, it's pretty clear. You have various options depending on your actions, and these ways of spending your successes could also serve as guidelines if you want to do some less orthodox actions. However, I wish that the author decided whether to use mechanist or machinist as the definition for a game master, because these terms are constantly being swapped all the time, so sometimes it's a bit confusing. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.